HumanX Ventures presents Inside the Coaching Mind. Terry Pettit coached the University of Nebraska's first national championship team in 1995 and put the state of Nebraska on a path to volleyball greatness. Now, Terry mentors coaches, writes books, and gives talks about leadership and team building to corporate and business audiences. Here's Coach Pettit to take us inside the coaching mind.
Thank you, David Young. I'm really excited about our guest today, Samantha Sam Erger, the head coach of the SMU Mustangs. We have never had a guest within 12 hours of when they played a significant match. And before I get to Sam, I need to thank HumanX Ventures, our title sponsor, an organization that recruits, develops, and mentors talent. And I have an idea that Sam Erger would be pass in flying colors anything that HumanX Ventures wanted to do, because I believe she's talent oriented. Sam, welcome to Inside the Coaching Mind. It's wonderful to have you here this morning.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited what you said about so quick. I like being first. I like building, but we've even since had another match. So it's coming fast.
Yeah. But before we get into the coaching aspect, when did your day begin this morning, and what have you done up to this point? We're talking at 8:30 in the morning Central Time. What have you done so far?
Yeah, so I've got 3 young children. So actually 3 in the morning, I'm giving my 3-year-old some milk. It's terrible, but he's still just waking me up at night sometimes. Then at 6:30, I'm waking up, getting them ready for school, and 7 a.m. getting my 7-year-old up, helping walk him over to school. We live right by our school. Then I'm kind of trying shifts in the night, checking in with my husband. What do we got today? Is there anything I'm missing? And then I'm on the road here. So there's a lot going on.
So anyone in our listening audience that's complaining that their day is too long, compare it to Coach Erger. You've already done 2 things that I've never done. I've played number 1 teams and won, but I don't recall beating 2 different number 1 teams in a season. I don't ever recall having a former president come to my match. And last night, former President George Bush was at the match. That had to be exciting for you. Were you aware that he was coming?
I was. It was super exciting. Laura Bush is a SMU alum. They live right around here. And we got word that he might come, and I've been pushing to get him to come. He's a big football fan, and come on, volleyball is the new thing. Let's go. So getting him out to a game was really special. Very cool.
Well, that was cool. And last night you played Stanford, a program that's won more national championships than any other. And they certainly have the talent to compete for another one this year. There's really 3 matches I want to touch on. The first was when Nebraska came to town, and they'd lost maybe 2 matches in the last 2 years. And they come into SMU, and the Mustangs put it to them. You'd played Nebraska in Lincoln the year before.
Yeah.
Correct?
Yeah.
And I never entered a match that I didn't see a way we could win. What were your thoughts entering that match with Nebraska?
Well, I have to tell you, when we scheduled them, they offered us just guarantee money. And I thought, let's just see what happens. Let's ask them for a return. They probably will say no. They make a ton of money on their home games. But let's just throw it out there. The worst they can say is no. And they said yes. I was shocked. So we were really thrilled. There was a more macro view of let's get Nebraska to town and show the Dallas market what big time volleyball can look like, and win or lose. Obviously winning would be amazing, but even if we don't win, it will be a win as we try to build this program. And that's what I'm trying to do. So I want to fill out the gym. Even if it's Nebraska fans, we're red too. So people can, guess on what, we're red and blue. And I want to show our administration what's possible. I want to get the Dallas market excited for big time volleyball. So that was really the goal. So then as our team was taking shape, I was like, man, we could actually probably give them a good match. Like, we're going to go for it. So yeah, I mean, we're going to try to compete with everybody.
Yeah. Well, you said a couple things there that show you take ownership of things that some coaches don't. You're taking responsibility for fans, for promoting the sport, and that's a big jump from where many coaches, particularly a coach who has just moved into a program for a couple years. I mean, your first thought is I've got to win some matches, but I think you're seeing a little wider picture. What was in 2 or 3 sentences, what was the game plan? What made you think you might be able to compete and perhaps win that match?
Yeah, I mean, we knew we wanted to serve and pass them tough, and I did feel like offensively we could make them struggle if we didn't just they're a great backcourt defensive team, but we wanted to go swing line, tool, and keep the ball away from Lexi Rodriguez. So, we wanted to set over Bergen Riley and see if her blocking could hold up. And then, Andy Jackson's an incredible middle, but she's still young on the defensive side of things. So we thought that our experienced middles could work around her and do some things. So offensively, take it to them, see if our serve game could hold up, and swing away from Lexi was really the game plan.
Yeah, that's pretty good. When you're preparing game plans, who's involved in that? Is that one of the assistants? Is it you? Is it collaborative?
It's very collaborative. So I really look at the offense and picking apart the other team's defense. I'm trying to make sure we're still just sticking with our identity and doing our thing. And I'm looking at where can we score points? How can we uniquely attack this team? And then what chess moves might we need to make? My top assistant is really in charge of defense. Although I still look at that as well. I think as a head coach, you really just have to look at everything. But he's in charge of defense, serving, blocking, and how that's going to go. I have another assistant that really gets into the serve and pass game, and she's studying the other team's servers and helping our passers work through that portion of the game. And then we have our technical coordinator on the bench that's studying patterns throughout the game. So we're not so different from what other programs are doing, but I would say I really enjoy that part of the game. I think volleyball can be a chess match, and that's
Well,
what makes it fun.
well, Sam, but the fact that you're aware that you're going to need to make adjustments. I always figured going into a match, we might win one set on preparation. They'd win one set on preparation. We might be in a zone for a set. They might be in a zone. Who wins the fifth set? It's the team that makes adjustments, successful adjustments.
Yeah.
So we have to prepare our team for that. You faced a really interesting situation when you played Pitt twice in 1 week. Pitt is still the number one ranked team, and when you look at them statistically, you don't want to look at them statistically because if you look at the stats, you think, well, they've got 4 of the top 10 servers in the country, and they've got 3 great pins and 2 that are almost unstoppable, and a setter that can go down to her knees and set a go set. So when you and that first match, you were overwhelmed. SMU was overwhelmed. I don't. I believe that Pitt's player that's in line to be considered for National Player of the Year, I think she had like 467 and had 18 kills and 2 errors. So I'm assuming later that night you maybe got on a charter and came back to Dallas.
Yeah.
Is that correct? All right.
We actually flew back the next day commercial, but
Okay.
yes.
Yeah. Well, there's a direct flight. So you're coming back. But you had to feel, I know how that feels. I mean, you feel like you got hit by a truck.
Yeah.
So is the staff getting together on the plane? What happens as you're preparing to play them 3 days later?
Yeah, I mean, you've got to address multiple aspects. You have to address your team's emotional mentality. That's a real part of the game. And we just got whooped. So you need to turn that into fuel. And instead of having them, feel defeated, present it as a challenge. Okay, what an opportunity to now go uniquely get to play them very quickly again. So this doesn't have to sit on our hearts for very long. We get another chance soon. So you got to flip it right away mentally, and get excited about a new chance to play them. I think that's important. You've got to address just like the environment stuff. Like, okay, we need to sleep, we need to eat, we need to get to bed. Like, if we're going to do this, we've got to address that we give them our best game. And some of that is just physically and environmentally. And then, yeah, you got to go dig into the film, which we absolutely did, and start looking at what went wrong. What did we do well that we need to do more of? What did we do not so well that we need to change? And then what can we do different that maybe they can't prepare for? And so that is from match to match, but like you kind of alluded to earlier, that's also just within the match, set to set. So going into Pitt round 2, our whole staff got together and started looking at that. Offensively, I'm looking at that. Defensively, I think we needed to make a lot of changes against Pitt, and that was probably the biggest flip going into the second round.
Tell me about how you worked on the mindset of your players. So I'm a player here, and,
Yeah.
and are you meeting with me individually, or are you talking to the team as a whole?
I mean, it's not some crazy science. Like immediately after the game, I think if you're just engaged and in tune to your team, you're talking about, hey, this sucks. Let's just talk about how we're feeling right now, which is terrible. We just got embarrassed. They were very casual. They're laughing, but they're a good team. Let's acknowledge that. And now let's talk about how can we remedy this feeling. They are good, and so you shouldn't feel so terrible, but it's human nature. We just got whooped. So I just think acknowledging the reality of the situation, and then immediately we're talking about, all right, round 2 is coming up. They gave us their very best game at Pitt. Olivia Babcock had 12 kills, I think, in set 2. Their servers went off. And they're good, but they didn't really miss. They gave us their best game. So why don't we go show them our best game? And let's get fired up for that. And sometimes humans just want that story of let's go fight. I mean, I'm recruiting competitors, so competitors get fired up on the idea of a battle. So let's go give them our best battle. And I think you just got to understand your kids. So
Well, Sam, that was just a great definition of emotional intelligence, that you were aware of how they were feeling and you were able to meet them at that point and then suggest a different path. And perhaps one of the reasons that they responded is they're experienced players. They've played a lot. If it was a group of freshmen and sophomores, it might have been a little bit more overwhelming.
sure.
But Olivia Babcock is a tremendous player, and to go from hitting close to 500 and then hitting close to 0, you need a little luck in that. But tactically, you don't have to play him again this year, so you can.
Yeah, so we needed to defensively commit on her a little more. We were in a read block the first round a little too much, and the read block, ideally, you go into that so when you've got good hitters everywhere and you're just reacting to what's in front of you and hopefully giving up nothing. But I felt like in that read block, we were giving up everything. And we needed to take a little bit of a gamble and say, you know what, we think they're going to set Olivia. We're going to go commit on that. And then if they go away from her, then we're just going to have to make some plays and dig one-on-one. We're going to have to dive in and be aggressive and at least try to slow it down. And they don't run their middles. I think their middles are maybe 9% of their total offense. So we said, hey, middles, we got to go one-on-one. We got to dig around them. Olivia, we need to go slow her down. And at times we're going to have to understand their patterns, and we're going to have to go commit on Stafford as well. But we needed to take a few more, I think, risks in our blocking schemes, because when we were in that read block, we were just blocking nothing. We were trying to cover everything and covering nothing.
Mm-hmm. Well, you said something else there, patterns. I think that successful people in competition that are competing against someone else try and pick up on patterns. I know when I was coaching, we didn't have volumetrics then. So I'd have to
Yeah.
watch a lot of film, but try and figure out, what does this coach do when they run into trouble? How does she solve a problem? The challenge with Pitt was they weren't running into trouble. So you
Yeah.
weren't really seeing maybe where they could be vulnerable. But that's that kind of turnaround can happen in the NBA in the championship. A team can lose. The Nuggets could lose to the Lakers by 25 points and come out back and win. But we're dealing with 25 to 35-year-old professionals. For younger women to do that, that are 18 to 22, that turns some heads. So congratulations on that. And so now you've beaten two top teams in the country, and you're going to come in and you're playing another team that's at that level, Stanford. And it looked to me, my assessment of the match was the first set maybe shouldn't have been as close as it was. I mean, SMU had 6 kills, but Stanford had, I don't know, maybe eight service errors.
Yeah.
But from that point on, things became a lot closer. And the third set was thrilling. I thought when Stanford's when Ruben got to the back row toward the end, I thought SMU's going to win this if Stanford's best outside hitter gets in the back row. But what happened toward the end, your setter made a courageous decision. She really had to set the slide to your M2 prior to that. And so I applaud that, because setters sometimes are hesitant to set the middle in crunch situations, and particularly somebody that they haven't set. But they played it off the block and came back and won the match. What'd you say to your team after the match?
I I was disappointed in the way that if you were there, we're talking emotional intelligence. Our team typically is not. We're ready to fight anybody, and I felt like last night we had a great game plan. I thought our service game took way too long to get rolling. We don't ask them to do more or less. You just got to do what your serve. I don't need you to serve harder or tougher. I will never ask my players, "Hey, we have to serve tougher." Now they're trying to go outside themselves. No, I need to go do your serve, and we weren't ourselves early on. So we addressed that. We addressed the tentativeness that I thought we played with, and I thought we played tentative against Pitt set 1 at home as well, both teams. And so if the other team's going to show up and play tentative, we have to capitalize on that. So we addressed that. And then you talked earlier about pros, like NBA players. I think there's all these pro leagues now. These girls, I like to recruit girls that want to play pro. So we're asking them, I know that you're kids and you're managing school and social lives, and it's formative years of your life right now and you're growing, but people want to be called up. They want to rise. And so we're asking them to act like professionals. And we've got to be consistent and be able to count on you. And I think last night we were searching for some of that. Offensively, we couldn't stop their lefts. So we just addressed all of that. And then we talked about, man, now we got to move onward, upward, and forward, and hopefully fix those issues. Because 2 matches now, one that we won, one that we lost, where we have played tentative. and you're not going to win very often playing tentative.
Yes, I understand exactly what you're saying, but Maya Tabron did not play tentative. I thought she was a gamer in this match. When I posted that you were going to be a guest on my Facebook site, we got a tremendous response, much more so than we did with people that maybe have won national championships. So people are intrigued to know what's going on. There were a couple people that you can imagine what they post. They say, well, they should be good. They've got all these players from other teams. But the thing is, you inherited a program that it wasn't a bad program. It had just never really been an extraordinary program. And you took advantage of the portal. And so you were able to get several players that over the last 2 years, not just the last year. My question is this. First of all, it's very difficult, even when you do that, to get those people together, to get them to gel. The second thing is, maybe with the exception of the middle blocker, Foster, who was an all-conference player, these other players were good players, but they were not all-conference players from the schools they came from. They were not all-Americans. And I'd seen Maya play at Colorado, and she's a much stronger player for SMU than she was at Colorado. I saw Bolton play at Creighton, and of course her role's a little different. She's doing a little bit more for you, but how in the world can you assess? You can watch video, so you can see the player that you picked up 2 years ago from Wyoming, your opposite.
Mm.
You can see she's athletic. How do you know she's going to be a fit? And that's the first part. And then you've got to go up against other schools when she enters the portal that are interested in her as well. So talk to me about fit. How do you know that somebody that's playing for another school is going to be a fit for what you're trying to do?
I want to address a few things that you said in here. So I'm going to come back to fit. Number one, because you hit some hot buttons here. This is so good. This is such a good conversation. Any coach's job, my job, is to look at the landscape and make the most of the situation that I'm in. And that includes, whether you like it or not, the reality of the world and the recruiting world that we're in. So I showed up to a team of 6 girls. I had no choice but to go to the portal. And I wouldn't have been a good coach or deserve this job if I didn't go find a way to field the very best team that I could. So there's that. And I want to win, and I want to compete at a high level. So I think getting experienced kids out of the portal as we're trying to get the ball rolling is great. I am now, with the success we've had, trying to get some really big names out of high school. But you should never settle. If you want to win, you cannot settle in recruiting. So however you need to get the best kids in, that's what you should do for your school and your program. There's no right way. I think there's this old school view of like, develop them out of high school and this and that. And I would love to do that. I'm all in for that. But like you said, SMU didn't have a big name for a while. And we're still trying to, grow as a program. So the best kids out of high school weren't saying yes to us. Okay. So I'm going to go get the best kids out of the portal that I can find and try to build. And that's every coach's job, is to deal with the reality of the situation that you're in and try to go be great. So there's that. Number 2, you talked about Maya and some of these kids that Ellie, Celia, Cullen from Michigan State. We want to develop. I am all about building and developing not only this program, but these players individually. And so I am going to go, and this kind of goes into your question about fit. I am going to go find kids that this is not their last stop, that they have big dreams just in life, whether that's big time career dreams, big time I want to go play pro. And these recruiting assessments out of high school, some of them are spot on, but not always. You've got kids that get rated really highly, but you've got to talk to them, and you're gonna find kids. I was one of those kids that I wanted to go coach big time, and if you had talked to me a long time ago, I've always had these dreams. You go find kids that I want to play pro, I want to develop, I will work as hard as it takes. And so when I'm talking to Naya Shimei out of Wyoming, it's, hey, what do you want to do with your life? And if they're talking about Dallas and how great it is and this and that, and 20 minutes in, we haven't even talked about volleyball, it's probably not a fit. But if they're talking, man, I'd like to play pro volleyball, I have a dream to go to the USA tryout. Okay, well, we can help you with that here. It's going to be hard. We're going to have to train and develop. And then we start talking about a plan with these kids. This is what it's going to look like to get you from point A to point B. Are you up for that? And if they're not, I will not take them. Hey, you're going to have to hit the weight room and jump X amount higher. We're going to have to address your nutrition. We're going to have to train this area of your game. For Maya, it was passing. Are you up for how hard that's going to be to develop that passing in just a month? You're showing up for her, she showed up in June. But I'm only going to have a few weeks to address the passing. Are you going to be okay with that? Or do you want to just do your old thing? Because if she's not okay with development, it's probably not a fit here. So I think you have to go find kids that want to develop.
Well, Sam, I think what impresses me is that you're creating a brand, and you've thought about this. You've given a great deal of thought about it. So my guess is that you're making very few misses. But other schools are going after some of these kids as well. Foster is the one player that had been an all-conference player, was a great server. You mentioned the match last night. She didn't serve as well as she normally does. And, you began some sets with her in the serving position. I'm just guessing now that that's an interesting decision, because she's also your best attacker. And so you can either get her on the front row right away, or the way volleyball's going, serving may be the most important fundamental, starter serving, but she missed quite a few serves. So she may have been somebody trying to do too much. I don't know.
Yeah, you're not wrong. So in set 3, we actually, I don't know if you noticed this, we flipped our middles. We put Foster into the M2 in order to try to get the best of both worlds. Naya was hitting 300, and I felt like we needed to get her going. So we started in, I want to say we started in row 6. That would have allowed Naya to get across the front row earlier. Then Foster becomes the M2, and then Maya and Foster are now our 2 first servers, but we also have some more offense starting out of the front. So not every calculated risk pays off, but every risk is calculated. Like, you have to think it through, right? So that was yeah, you know what I mean?
But see, you're talking about a different level of coaching, and it's something that I encourage coaches to do, that in practice, you need to flip those people. You need to start in different rotations. You need to do things so that your team is somewhat comfortable when you make those adjustments in a match. So, you might not think that's sophisticated thinking, but it is. And that type of thinking can happen at the high school level. Those things can be implemented. But when you are recruiting somebody like Foster, I got to think that there were several other schools that were involved in wooing her as well. Is that accurate?
Yeah, we were her last visit of maybe 4 or 5 visits. So I was worried. I told her, I said, hey, I'm a little scared you're not even going to show up on this visit, because we're last, which is good in some ways with recency bias. But what if she calls me, which other kids did? Hey, I did my visit to this school, and I'm just sorry, I'm going to cancel yours. I'm just going to go with this school. So I was worried. But again, like, I really do trust that what we want in my plan for players, if they don't want it, that head and heart alignment has to be there. And I will give them my spiel and talk about a unique plan for their development. And if they don't want it, it's not a fit. As badly as I might be like, dang it, we just lost a good player. I've seen good players go to other schools that I really wanted and not develop. And I'm like, okay, like we have to stick to our guns on we have to get kids that love volleyball, want to develop, and are bought into our culture. And honestly, we do have to get, I think, kids that have a competitive edge because not everybody has that. There's good players that don't have that fire in them. And as you're trying to punch upwards, which is what we're trying to do, you need some of that competitive fire.
And I also sense that you're after kids, when we say, yeah, I want to develop, a kid really has to embrace being uncomfortable.
Yes.
And some people may say that, but if I'm doing my job as a coach, they're going to be uncomfortable every week that I'm coaching them because we're always moving the carrot out a little bit further. Is that part of your?
Oh, 100%. Like just last week, we introduced a new combo play to Foster. She hadn't really served a ton at Wichita State. She served a little bit, but not a ton. So immediately when she got here, we said, you're going to serve. We challenged her to get 4 or 5 inches higher on her approach touch, which is not easy to do. And we laid out a plan for that. And we said, hey, this is going to be hard. This is not easy. You have to address nutrition. You have to address the weight room. You need to start lifting right now. Like February is too late. You've got to lift now. And so we're constantly moving the goalposts. I think that is the job of the coach. We just introduced some pump fake type stuff to her. We haven't shown it yet, but I would love for that to come out later this season. And then maybe you'll see her taking some out of system swings, so that I've been trying to get us to set her out of system for months. I mean, I'm like, okay, first time she takes an out of system swing, I'm taking you to Starbucks. Like I'm giving them everything I can to try to get them to do this because her arm is so elite. So why not?
Yeah.
If it's a good, and Creighton does that a little bit with their middles, and I know you're familiar with that program. So, learning is what makes it fun. Volleyball is fun when you're learning and growing.
Well, you said several things there that piqued my interest. First of all, there's a lot of coaches out there going, what? She improved her vertical jump 5 inches? So tell me what you did. Tell me what you did.
Well, first of all, our strength coach is amazing. He's a master of his craft, and that's something I do with each of our assistants as well. Is hey, I'm going to be great at my role, but for this to work, we all have to be the head coaches of our own roles. And our strength coach has really bought into that. I think we take an approach similar to like a football team. You would see our strength coach on our bench. You would guess that he's a coach because he is. He is that involved and he is that engaged. And if you watch a football game, their strength coaches are on the sidelines. And so we lift before practice every single day. There's a nutritional aspect to jumping higher. There's a sleep management. I think you have to take it as serious as the training with volleyball. Your growth to be a better athlete. Better athletes will be better volleyball players. And so we are going to put as much stock in that as we do just training the game.
Are you doing depth jumps?
Yeah. I mean, we're doing to get into that would have to be a conversation with our strength coach, and he's good. And go follow him on Instagram, Anthony Cockrell, shout out, because he posts all of our workouts on there, and we're not trying to hide anything. We're not trying to gatekeep, but he's very methodical in the way that he lifts them, and we do a lot of testing and we do a lot of goal setting. Okay, you touching 10-1 today in 4 weeks, in a month, let's get to 10-2, 10-1.5 at minimum. And if we're not getting there as we test and we lay that out, then we address it. Hey, by now you should be a little higher. So something is falling through the cracks. Nutrition, sleep, stress management, something's not together.
Okay.
You can only measure what you test, right? And you can only understand and goal set what you measure.
Well, Sam, when you say I want people that want to be pros, so if I'm recruiting pin hitters, they need to be I need to be running a 6 rotation system,
Mhm.
correct?
Yeah,
Yeah,
100%. All 3 of our pins play 6 rows.
right. And that kind of sets you apart from other people, which is an advantage in
Yes.
my mind. Anytime that you can do something that that other people aren't doing. I had an opportunity to listen to your podcast with Travis Wyckoff. I thought it was an excellent podcast. But the one thing that I wanted to talk with you a little bit about that's so different from my experience uh, is how you interact with your staff during the day, so that it's primarily by text and by email. And I come from a generation where I really don't know what anybody feels about something if I can't see their face, as opposed to a text or an email. So how tell me how this works.
Well, we have to be very efficient, so it's not always text and email. If we're on the road, we're using those opportunities to meet in person and make the most out of when we're together, and honestly, frankly, away from our families. I've got 3 kids, 7, 4, and 3. My top assistant has 4. My second assistant has a 3-year-old, a 4-year-old that's good friends with my 4-year-old. So my other assistant just had a baby yesterday. So, um, we volleyball is not the most important thing in any of our lives. It's not the most important thing in my life. It's not the most important thing in my players' lives, and it's not healthy for that to be the case, to be honest. But it is something that we really love and care about, and but our families and that comes first. So a healthy, happy coach is going to be way better than someone that's not. And right now, I'm trying to balance being a mom and being a coach. So yeah, we are firing off texts. I mean, just this morning, I sent a text to my, I'm gonna laugh. You're gonna laugh at this. I sent a text to my technical coordinator, and I said, I want a montage of every free ball that we gave to Stanford. You need to back it up and show the whole clip. And that is what we are going to study. I thought we gave away against Stanford. They're so good. You've got to swing at them. You cannot give them, you can't tip on them. You can't give them free balls. You have to swing. And we lost that part of our game plan. So we will study that in practice tomorrow. And yeah, right now in this stage of life, I couldn't say that over a meeting here this morning because I was with my kids. So it had to be a text.
Okay. Well, whatever, you're doing a lot of things that a really experienced head coach does. You also have something in your background that I think is very positive. I've helped a lot of schools hire head coaches, and the tendency for a lot of ADs is they want an assistant coach from Stanford, Nebraska, or whatever. And I tend to lean towards somebody who's been a head coach at some point, and you were a head coach at Hill Junior College.
Yeah.
Mick Haley was a head coach at a junior college. Kirsten Booth at Creighton was a
Yeah.
head coach at a junior college. You just learn things that you can't learn as an assistant coach. So tell me what happened at Hill Junior College that helped you be a better coach at SMU.
I really love that you're asking me this question, and you're unique in understanding this, I think, as I agree with you. It's very frustrating, and it had been frustrating to me in my career that more people don't understand what you just said. Because at Hill, I had to go be successful with very little and figure out how to win and be successful with almost no resources in a tiny gym with one court. And I had to learn how to recruit a team every year because it's JUCO, so you're pretty much losing half your team every year. And I had to scrap and claw, and you learn from losing and you learn from having to figure things out. And unfortunately, if you've never been in that situation, that's a skill maybe that hasn't been worked and developed. Everybody can learn it. So for those assistants that get those big time jobs, then they need to find some other way to flex that muscle. But and I say this to people all the time because I get the question, like, how are you at SMU? How did this work out? How did you get there? And I always encourage people, go coach a club team or go find a way to flex that muscle. So yes, at Hill, I had to figure out how to be successful with a $40,000 budget for the whole season. I mean, that's travel, that's food, that's, jerseys, that's everything. But I look back on that with so much fondness and gratefulness and gratitude for that opportunity. I probably was the only person that interviewed for that job. I think they just had to give it to me. And Paul Brown was the AD, so shout out to him if he's hearing this. I'm really just thankful. And yeah, I enjoyed that part of my career. I wouldn't change it. So these people that are like, I just want to go get the big time job, that's not fun. You'll eventually get to that, but go do something that's fun and go get your feet wet.
Yeah, and you're also the daughter of a successful coach. And I always was enthusiastic when I could recruit a kid who had a teacher or a coach as a parent. They understood things other kids didn't. Lindsay Wishmeyer, she's now Lindsay Peterson. Her dad was a coach. We recruited her as a setter. She became a libero, a team captain on a national championship team under John Cook. But they're able to have a little broader vision of what the whole thing is about. I talk a little bit about your dad, and what would you say is the most important factor that you learned from him?
Well, my dad is top 5 winningest coach in, any, college. You go look at the AVCA wins, they have it up there, and he's up there next to Mick Haley. So I'm really proud of him. And I would say the biggest thing he taught me is that if you're going to choose this career path, you're really choosing an investment in the community of wherever you are at, if you want to win and be successful and do it right and enjoy it, right? So that's something that I told John Cook before, and you, I guess I can say to you, before we played Nebraska, I had an exchange with him where I knew I wanted to tell him, hey, I'm really inspired by what you guys have done at Nebraska, and I watch all of it, right? So I've seen all the documentaries and the interviews, and where you're going out to all the high schools around the state and trying to engage the community and build something special that will, um, self roll at some point. Like, those are all seeds being planted. Every little penny in the bucket ultimately helps your program, but it's an investment and engagement in the overall community. And that's what he taught me, because that community that he's chosen to build his family in and engage in, hundreds of kids have gone on to play college volleyball and changed their lives, right? Like, scholarships and education and the pride that community has in North Branch High School volleyball is really, really special. And that took years. That took summer open gyms where he's not getting paid, but he's there. All the kids are there. And this is just what we do. We are engaged in this community. We
Yeah.
want to build. So that's what I'm all about as well. And that's the successful blueprint, I think, that he taught me.
Sam, there's a summit in Omaha this next summer for Human X Ventures, and I'm going to tell Brad Black to hire you to come in to speak at.
I would love to.
But yeah, that's really good stuff. When you began this season and you're setting goals, I'm guessing that's a collaborative thing with the team. What was, from a win-loss standpoint, from a measurable standpoint, what was the goal this year? And then the second part of the question is, have you had to change it?
Yeah, good question. So, we look at it twofold. I'm not really buying what either camp is selling. There's this camp of, like, don't set any big time goals, just add value, and the goals will work themselves out. And then there's this camp of, like, no, let's go win a national championship and that's our goal. And I think that the answer is somewhere in the middle. So we did talk about, hey, we'd like to win the conference. That'd be really cool. Why not? Let's name it and claim it. We'd like to go to the Sweet 16. That'd be really cool. And we feel like we have that caliber of team and that caliber of motivation and commitment and engagement, which really is what you need if you want to do stuff like that. But then we also, so once we lay that out, we talk about, okay, now what is it going to take micro daily to do that?
What
And
are the
that,
behaviors?
yeah, what are the behaviors? So ultimately, it's adding value every single day. That's what you. So that is a major goal of each one of our players is, and that's a standard in our program. Like we will go to bed at night thinking positively about our days if we've added value. It should not be, hey, did I beat Stanford? Okay, no, I can't sleep. I feel like crap. Although I sometimes have to work on that myself. But did I add value today? Did we decouple those goals that we do set with our behaviors? Were we competitive? Did we give our best swings, our best shot? Did we add value? And that I kind of talked at the beginning was where I was a little disappointed in the Stanford match because we have goals of competing and giving our best game to everybody and acting like professionals. And I didn't think I said we were tentative. So that would be a reason to look at those things and go, okay, that we are disappointed. We did not hit those behaviors that are really important to us in this match. So yeah, I think you just got to do both.
Yeah, decisions and behaviors are the meat of the work. Everybody can set the goal.
Mhm.
It's making a commitment to those things. Teams, the next couple of weeks are really interesting because you just can't coast. You've got to keep getting better. All
Yeah.
right. Watching your team, I've got a couple ideas, but I'm not coaching the team. So,
I'm open to learning. I'm a learner. I love
well,
to hear what other people say.
I thought last night at some point that Shime needed to get more balls and that, she has the athleticism that she could match up and do some things. But in your mind, is there a player that has a higher ceiling that can continue to develop? And before we get to that, I do want to mention Jamison Wheeler.
Mhm.
I couldn't coach her because I would keep saying Wheeler Jameson, which I find just as interesting. But her overall stats weren't great, but she hit 3 or 4 critical shots in that third set that were very experienced shots where she used only her wrist as the lever and the
Mhm.
ball fell down deep in 5 or
Mhm.
before the attacker. Shows somebody that doesn't happen by accident.
Mhm.
Somebody has worked with her on those shots. But where can SMU, where can you grow the most?
Yeah, I wanted to say something, and it's just so her name's actually Jamison Wheeler, and she goes by Jams. So
Okay.
it's we love it.
All right.
It's the best nickname. But okay, so Jams, what makes her great? She's very under recruited. The one of the only kids left on the roster from that first meeting with 6 girls, um, and gets outmatched athletically at times. Physically, I guess she's an athlete, but gets outmatched physically. But where she is great and why she plays and has been able to stick with us as we've gone out and recruited a lot of other kids, because she really was recruited to more of a mid-major program, is she is a learner and she is going to follow the game plan and she is going to know what's going on and she is going to be committed to being in the moment and being competitive. We define competitive as most ready, most often. She will always be ready. She knows in advance what she wants to do. So I can trust that that kid's going to follow the game plan. Well, in our part of our game plan out of system was they ask their libero, who's very good, but they ask her to dig like the whole half of the court. So I'm like, I don't care how good you are, their left sides really don't want to pull off and dig out of system. She can't cover all of it. So we're going to go swing cross out of system at the libero. In
Right.
system, I think we need to swing away from her. So Jams was committed to that. And I think that's what you saw in set 3, where you're talking about some of those shots where she was trying to just anything to take it across the court because they go into a little bit of a rotation defense, but their bro digs the entire half. So, that's a lot of space to cover. Naya Shimei we did think she needed to get more balls. That's why we changed that rotation in set 3. Let's get her across the front row right away. She needs to get set more, and we'll flip our middles so that we still have our strongest servers at the beginning of the lineup. But remind me, I had to address those. Remind me what your question was.
Well, let me raise another thing. Something that I liked was your setter, Celia Cullen.
Mm-hmm.
I like the fact, and people need to hear this carefully because they might misinterpret it. She doesn't square. A lot of the times, I like that you didn't change that. I would teach somebody to square, but I've also had setters that set better when when their back was slightly to the net. And one of the things in coaching is you have to figure out what's worth changing and what isn't. And she came off the net and set some back sets that were really, great sets. So, again, that shows some sophistication on your staff's part, that we know what she can do, we know what she does best, and yeah. So if I was an AD, I'd hire you. You have you would you have all the things that we look for in a wise, exceptional coach. Plus, you have the motor. You have there David Cook, who has been a guest in our show and used to be the head of sports psychology at Kansas and worked with tour golfers. There's no commitment without passion. Passion is different than emotion. Passion is directed. So, Coach Sam, I want to thank you for being a guest on this program. I hope every coach in the country listens to it. And I also want to thank Human X Ventures. Without Brad Black and Human X Ventures, we couldn't attract talent like Sam Erger. And we'll see you next time. Thanks.
You're so kind. Thank you so much.
Inside the Coaching Mind is presented by Human X Ventures and is pleased to be a part of the Learfield Varsity Podcast Network. If you're on Facebook, look for the Inside the Coaching Mind group and join a vibrant discussion of volleyball and leadership. TerryPettit.com is where you'll find Terry's books, writings, and downloads, as well as subscription links for all your podcast apps.
You